Good evening. Tonight I broadcast from my tower of indecipherable speech, broadcasting from the airwaves beyond time, of the past but not yet printed in the future. Jargon, whatever rolls off the top of my tongue. It's sometimes fun to not work. It's sometimes fun to not know what you're going to say next. For it's a little trick that I learned once with a friend. It's a way to trick the mind into extracting data by quite simply overriding the part which forms language. And for some magical reason, the data comes out in an encrypted form because it doesn't flow like normal language, but it comes forth. The best way to extract this is if you've ever got a film and you're dubbing it, like just for the fun of it. Not that everyone does that, but I'm laughing because so many memories of the golden dubbings. The funniest things come out, compressed forms of language and information, it's like another version of you. It's really cool. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Tonight's theme in my castle that is of the Tower of Indecipherable Speech, beyond the Black Mirror and the realms of the 12. It's the astral realm. It's the astral realm, and it's specifically, what's known as the astral realm, but the soundscape, which is what I call the soundscape. It is a place not spoken by many, but it very much well and truly does exist. And I'm going to explain my experiences of what I call the soundscape, to the best of my understanding, its nature and what it appears to be, and how it appears to be perceived. So, all of this started when I was probably about 18, and I was in my sister's bed for some reason. I don't know why. I was just there. She must have been out, and I was asleep, half asleep, and then I was looking at the wall, and I remember so specifically, if this is my body, and I'm flat here, it felt like I floated out, just the top half, for about 5 seconds, and then back. And I was like, what the heck was that? That was so profound. It had never happened before, and for some reason it happened. It just happened then, and I was very intrigued, but confused, and kind of in denial, thinking, it's something, not denial, just, I was just like, well, that was strange, but cool, and really interesting. And it was around that time that I learned about lucid dreaming, and I watched the film Waking Life, which is so inspiring for all of that, and very, very cool for many reasons. And so I started to train myself to lucid dream as well, which I'll speak about that in another film, because that's different, very different from what I'm getting at this point in time. The dreams are very, very different. Anyway, my first weird astral happening happened, it seems, about that age, and it was an accident. There are always accidents, actually, most of the time, and it just happened. That was that. It was probably, I can't remember when. It could have been 6 months or a year later. It started to happen. Something started to happen to me, and it was so cool. It coincided with all of this other stuff. But what happened was this. Of all the phenomena that started happening, one specific division of phenomena was brought about by the onset of what is commonly known as sleep paralysis. So sleep paralysis is when you become consciously awake in your body, but your body is completely asleep, dead, and you have no control over any of its motor functions. You have no control over its breathing, and it feels like you're trapped in a sleeping corpse, essentially. So sleep paralysis, you can look it up in more detail, but yes, it's a state of in-between, where there's a little glitch, essentially, and it's a common enough experience for people. It can be induced by being overstimulated and trying to fall asleep, and it can artificially induce it. Or if you're just overtired, or there's heaps of reasons. If you're stressed in your body, you just like insomnia. There's like many reasons. Or you can you can program yourself to bring it about. But I wake up into this state. I actually wake up asleep. I wake up. I wake up out of asleep, but my body is still in a sleep, and that's what it is. So basically, so when you're in sleep paralysis, you cannot move. Literally, as the word says, you're paralyzed, completely paralyzed, and it's very scary when it first happens. It's terrifying, and the only thing you want to do is get out. You're trapped, and there is this feeling of fear, which is very strong. This underlying feeling of terror, which I'll get into as we proceed, because that's a theme to this whole thing for some reason. But anywho, basically, burn down the castle. The paralysis is a vector between the here and there. It's a window of opportunity to get either to the realm or to wake up. So what happened is this kept happening to me, and I was like, yeah, the sleep paralysis is cool. But for the first 10 times it happened, I just wanted to wake up. And I did this thing where it must have eventually dumped enough, I don't know what the chemicals are called, the wake-up chemicals, adrenaline, whatever it is, into my system, and I just came to after about 12 seconds. Generally how long it takes from the awareness to the body waking up, and you just like bounce back. You all of a sudden have control of your motor function. So if you're trying to squirm around, as soon as you're awake again, you might like jolt and like hit your hand against the wall or be flailing around for a few seconds, because that's what sorry, that's what you're doing in your mind, and it takes a while. There's so many silly things that could happen when you're in between here and there, which manifest in the funny stuff, like accidents and all sorts of things happening and screaming out as you sync back up. But basically, so what happens is I eventually figured out that there was something behind the paralysis, and discovered that if you didn't freak out, which is very hard to not freak out, it's very scary. As I said, there's this fear, indescribable, inhuman fear. It is the strangest fear. It's unworldly fear. And from that point, you can go, and for astral realm must be different for everyone, but there's astral projection, which I won't explain that. I'll get you to look it up. But I have had those experiences as well. That's a whole nother video. I like to be very thorough. I'm going to talk about the sound, what I call the soundscape, because it's what's most commonly experienced by me. It's the very first thing that happens before the projections can happen, which I've projected before, and I will get into that, as I said, in another video. But the soundscape is what seems to be closestly linked to me. I call it the soundscape. And what is the soundscape? So I'm in paralysis, and I go, there's a thing, and you can feel it. It's the intention to go deeper while you're still conscious, and you go deeper and you kind of sink. And the first thing that happens is, I mean, it's so insane. There's this ringing that gets so loud, like you're turned up it's like tinnitus, but it goes up so incredibly loud. And then literally, like, as if somebody's fading a volume control, what fades in are sometimes it starts off as one, then two, four, hundreds and hundreds of sounds going on. Sounds inside your head. And I know what it sounds like, but it is not that. The sounds, when you get into schizophrenic stuff, and sounds addressing an individual, like communicating to one person specifically, what's interesting about the sound is, and the many sounds are, they're not addressing you at all. There is no specific focus on you. It is like observing this thing, and it's happened to me in so many different ways, and there's so many different sounds. But an example, once I started astral projecting in this place, I went through some copper wires connected to speakers, and I could hear an AM radio station. I could hear somebody speaking. And one thing that's so funny is I never dream of Australian voice accents in my dreams. It's never, ever. I could hear this guy speaking, and he sounded like this football person, like some person. I could hear the defects in AM radio transmission as well. The side, the AM has artifacts in it, in AM transmissions, and they're kind of compressed sounding as well. The bandwidth on the high end is definitely compressed, cut off, and I could hear this guy yabbering off, and I was just like, "That's what that." And then I floated away. For some reason, a conductor did that. Another time, I did it into the ground, and I could hear a telephone call between my friend and this other guy, and I could hear them back and forth, and I was like, "Why?" I mean, like, it was so. It's so crystal clear as well. When you're listening with your ears, it feels like the sound is out here, but the sounds, all of these sounds are inside your brain. It's like, it feels like it's in. And so what happened was, once I heard so many voices and so many sound effects that it turned into white noise. It was white noise. It was as if I was hearing everything on the planet and nothing could be made out. It was just noise. It was noise. It was noise. Now, what is so interesting about this? So, by accident or not, I realized you could tune into specific channels, but it was incredibly hard and unstable and almost random, completely random. The most interesting thing about the sound and the soundscape is that the sound that you're hearing has a carrier attached to it that seems to contain emotion of what the sound is about, where it's coming from, its nature. What's so amazing is that the emotions that you feel attached to the carrier feel realer to me than most emotions that I experience in real life. They're more intense, they're more dynamically broad, they're more real, so to speak, and they're emotions I haven't felt before. So it feels, these experiences are only about 15 seconds lived, because it's so hard to stay in that place. And as I said, there's this fear, this crazy fear that always interferes with it all. But I'll get back to the fear, but there's emotions connected to the sound. And I've heard every strange sound you could imagine, from alien sounds to foreign languages to sound effects. I once heard this lady singing, and I totally got the clearest image that it was of the past, like thousands of years ago, somewhere. I don't even know if it was here. And I got such strong visual, because I can't see this. I can only feel. It's attached to the sound, but I can feel it through the sound. It carries the whole emotional data stream of the whole event. You just can't see it. And there was a lady singing, And I got the strongest impression she was beside like a little stream, somewhere in the wilderness, all by herself, and she was singing a song into the water. I was just like, that's so cool. And it felt so real, but I was like, yeah, that was like one that went for probably about 10 seconds or whatever. Other times I've heard people arguing in the street that sounded like they were going to rip each other's, like screaming, and it could have been in my neighborhood, I don't know. Other times I've heard like little creatures with higher pitched, just making this weird noise, this like, and other times it's almost as if it malfunctions and there is all this feedback. When the ringing gets really loud, there can be all these glitches in that, and sometimes it feels like there's like a speaker right in your ear and it's turned up too loud. So the soundscape is, whenever it happens, it feels like I've just been born for the first time, because reality, for some reason, sometimes it can seem a bit grey. This is like the real world. The the soundscape feels closer to a real world, realer than this world. And I only get to experience it for just, the only thing I can possibly relate it to is a psychedelic, and the intense emotions that you experience in a psychedelic is the only closest relation that you can access, even if it operates in your hardware the same as it does for me. A psychedelic seems to be the closest analog to manually inducing these similar, well, not similar, but palette of emotions. So I think the soundscape's crazy. I can feel when I'm going into it and I get all excited, and then it comes and it feels like I am so far away. I can't explain. It feels like I've just traveled to the other side of the galaxy, not physically, but I feel so far from this reality, so far, like farther than distance. And so far away, and it feels so exciting and overwhelming and completely terrifying. Every time I try to go in, something happens and I can't stay. I have to leave, because there's a thing that happens and it's so hard to control, and it's a fear unlike any fear you've ever felt. It is unworldly fear. It's not fear of like losing your job or fear of, it's a combination between fear of you're just about to be killed, mixed with nausea and mixed with dread, and something else, a darkness. It is the strongest weird feeling. There's no name for it, but it's this fear, and this fear gets me every time. It's turned up really high when I'm in this place, and it always cuts short. It prevents me from being the observer, because I'm pulled out. The fear is going to my brain, and my body starts producing those chemicals, and they make me wake up, and that's what happens. A few times I've been able to prolong it, but the fear gets the better of me. There might be a drug out there that doesn't muddle your brain but keeps you out of the fear, and then I might be stuck in that realm for like hours or something and come back traumatized. But basically, yeah, look, it's like a sacred place, and I get jealous. I get like, I'm just like, why can't I stay there? And the pyramid is like, I think the pyramid will, if the pyramids actually work, they might be the gateway to manually getting to the soundscape. Tuning it, I've got no idea about that, but I know that out there, it's almost as if every thought in the past, the present, every dimension is out there, it's floating around, and by a glitch, because I know it's a glitch, because like you're not meant to be like sleep paralysis, and then you kind of take advantage of that state. And you get to access this crazy thing, and it's like, you can't deny it. It's so incredible to experience. It is so clear. The sound is so clear, and like crystal glass clear, and the emotions are attached to it, and that's what makes it so real, is that you're absorbing these feelings and they're so unnative to you. It feels like completely like you're a different observer in a different place, a different person. It feels like it's got nothing to do with you, and I don't think it does. I think just for that brief window in time, the brain is tuned to that place, and you get a glimpse, and then it's over. And then you wake up in your bed, and you feel, and you like come back, and it feels like everything is like you're traveling at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you can feel the G-forces, and everything goes, and it just like you're back, but you feel the residual feeling, and you can ride that for about 10 minutes to half an hour until it fades off, and like reflect and recollect, and even maybe pinch extra data that was in the data stream to like make sense of it, which can happen as well in prophetic dreams, mostly in hindsight, up until they're corrupted by overriding the memories too many times, and then it's no longer pure. It's It's a corrupted memory, but something truly profound. I've never heard anyone else speak of the soundscape. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure many people experience it on a regular basis throughout the world and the galaxy, but it's real to me, and it's just so fascinating. And as I said, every time I have one of the experiences when I'm in the soundscape and I get a taste, it just makes me 10 times more curious and 10 times more interested, and I begin contemplating how to get there or tune into it using some kind of machine. And then I realize that that's what I've been trying to do for the last 16 years. So, sound and the waves, non-locality, it doesn't work how we think it works. But it is as if the brain it reroutes where sound is coming from temporarily by a glitch, because it can do this, and that's the other thing. I think it can do it, it's just that it cuts us off. Obviously it can do it if I'm experiencing it and other people are, and it's not just we're all schizophrenic or something like that. And as I said, the voices are not directed at me ever. Never. If anything, it's directed. It's the witnessing of two parties communicating. It's just like being the observer. And it only ever happens in this state. The only time it's ever happened is in this state, or when I once took a certain amount of psychedelics, a certain dose, and I got over a threshold, which I'll go into in another film. And yes, I was plugged in, but it was a different network. It was of the plant kingdom. A different subset of sounds connected to a different host place, almost as if it connects to some supermind and major nodal point in the ethers, which is the plant brain. The origins of where psilocybin patches through to, which may very well be a subdivision of the plant kingdom. Who knows? But yes, very cool, very, very cool. Post a comment if you have ever experienced the soundscape, because I would like to know if someone else has. It's very, very specific, and you will not mistake it if you experience it. As I said, the symptoms are the ringing and then just noise. Voices, sound effects, right in here with the emotional carrier that makes it quite specific as to what it is. And yes, we can talk about the soundscape together. I hope you've enjoyed video number 1 of Beyond the Black Mirror. Bum bum.